Welcome, class, to this masterclass explainer on Lesson 1 of Global Procurement Management. Let's jump right in because today we are going to completely redefine how you view global supply chains. We're moving far, far away from that outdated notion of dry administrative tasks and endless paperwork. Instead, we're going to uncover the actual strategic levers that leading companies pull to dominate their markets and protect their bottom lines. Consider this your syllabus for today's explainer. We'll be hitting 5 key areas. First, beyond simple purchasing. Second, what are we buying? Third, the procure-to-pay cycle. Fourth, the power of suppliers. And finally, world-class procurement. All right, Section 1, beyond simple purchasing. Defining the function. We got to start on the ground floor here and shatter a pretty persistent myth. Look, people use the words purchasing and procurement interchangeably all the time, right? But they absolutely aren't the same thing. Purchasing, that's really just a subset. It's a short-term, highly transactional task. Ordering goods, receiving the boxes, and paying the invoice. Procurement, on the other hand, is a massive, long-term strategic process. We're talking complex supplier selection, deep contract negotiations, managing those long-term relationships, and constantly evaluating performance. Basically, purchasing is a tactic. Procurement is a long-term strategy. So, this definition really nails it. Procurement is the strategic function that maximizes value and minimizes risks to an organization, its stakeholders, and customers by optimizing external resource management. Ultimately, it is the absolute front line of defense for value creation and supply chain optimization. It's the whole shebang for ensuring your business actually survives and thrives in a fiercely competitive global environment. Section 2. What are we buying? Types of procurement. Let's examine exactly what it is we're acquiring and how we categorize it all. Everything a company buys is going to fall into a few specific buckets. First up, direct procurement. These are the raw materials that actually go into manufacturing your final product, like raw steel for a car maker. Then you have indirect procurement. These are the day-to-day operational things that don't directly make you a profit, like a restaurant chain buying uniforms for its staff, or maybe hiring an outside marketing agency. We also split acquisitions into goods, which is anything from physical cables to a software subscription, and services, which are much more people-based. Think bringing in legal consultants or an on-site security team. Now, to manage all these different purchases effectively, we use what's called the Krologic matrix. It's like a giant puzzle where you evaluate items based on their profit impact and their supply risk. Think about it. You wouldn't treat routine office pens the same way a smartphone manufacturer treats lithium batteries, right? For what we call leverage items, like those mobile batteries, the profit impact is huge, but the supply risk is low. So your strategy there is to run open tenders, play multiple suppliers against each other, and really leverage your buying power to get the best price. But for strategic items, that's a whole different ballgame. Here, both the risk and the profit impact are sky high. You can't just shop around. You absolutely must form long-term partnerships and proactively develop goods jointly with your suppliers to lock down your supply chain. So, how do we systematically pull off these strategies? That brings us to Section 3, the procure-to-pay cycle, or the P2P process. The P2P cycle is literally the mechanical heartbeat of procurement. It moves methodically through 5 distinct steps. Step 1 is sourcing, identifying the right supplier. Step 2 is approval and contract generation, getting it all in writing. Step 3 is active contract administration. Step 4 is the physical receipt and inspection of the materials. And finally, Step 5 is settlement, payment, and crucially, supplier relationship management. That's where we actually measure performance to make absolutely sure we're getting the value we signed up for. And that critical final step seamlessly transitions us to Section 4, the power of suppliers, relationship management. Supplier relationship management, or SRM, is not just about shaking hands and smiling for the corporate newsletter. No way. It is about treating your critical suppliers as literal extensions of your own business. To survive the insane complexities of the global market, you simply cannot operate in a vacuum. You have to manage these partnerships highly strategically. As our source material puts it so perfectly, true SRM requires exactly this: a joint commitment to continuous improvement. That means you are actively sharing your long-term business goals with your suppliers. It demands that senior executives from both sides get actively involved. You're transforming the whole dynamic from a basic buyer-seller transaction into one cohesive strategic unit working toward the exact same objectives. So, what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, we want suppliers who make strategic investments in us. For example, a supplier who consistently exceeds quality standards gets it right first time. That avoids massive penalty costs and protects your market reputation. Then there's consignment stock. This is a brilliant setup. Sane Electronics component supplier keeps their inventory right there at the buyer's manufacturing plant. The supplier manages it, but the buyer only pays for the parts the exact moment they use them in production. It completely slashes storage and working capital costs. And finally, you might even see suppliers investing in upgrading their own procurement expertise just to meet our needs faster and more accurately. When you combine those precise P2P processes with elite, highly invested supplier relationships, you reach the summit of our lesson today. Section 5, World-Class Procurement, Managing Performance. World-class procurement organizations don't just sit back and react to the market. They actively manage supplier performance to drive long-term value, and they do it by insisting on a few non-negotiables. They use total quality management, or TQM, aiming for literally zero defects. They implement just-in-time delivery systems to drastically cut out waste and delays. They lock in long-range strategic plans with their suppliers. They strictly enforce corporate social responsibility, or CSR, to maintain ethical standards, and they foster a powerful culture of shared organizational learning and constant innovation. So why go through all this trouble to reach world-class status? Because the boardroom desperately needs procurement to act as a shield against massive existential risks. Let's break down what's actually at stake here. Under legal risks, procurement is what reduces your exposure to complex offshore jurisdictions and nasty product liability claims. When we talk about supply chain risks, procurement is your primary defense against crippling delays, whether that's from unexpected force majeure events or falling into the trap of relying on a single supplier. And on the financial side, world-class procurement stops you from facing the catastrophic costs of having to suddenly resource goods just because a key supplier went bankrupt. As we wrap up this masterclass explainer on Lesson 1, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative question. Are outdated, purely transactional purchasing practices secretly exposing your organization to hidden global risks? I mean, really take a hard look at your current operations. Are you stuck in the past, just processing paperwork and cutting checks? Or are you truly ready to elevate procurement into a strategic powerhouse that secures your competitive edge? Think about it. Thanks for joining me today, and keep learning.